Welcome back to 5 Acres Honey Farm. I'm Tara Lynn, and today is a 5 Acres Honey Farm West video. I'm at my apiary that's near Fontana Lake in western North Carolina. And in my last video, I had mentioned I was going to finally give an update on the hives and how they're faring this winter. And I had also shared that I've had some losses, and I've kind of taken a little bit of a risk and a gamble, but I feel very confident in it. My beekeeping mentor says I've made a bold move, but we'll see. If you agree, just comment and let me know. But I've had 2 colonies that were really small going into the winter. I was kind of concerned about them, and I think other beekeepers may have requeened or combined them in the fall, and I really wanted to give them an opportunity to just to kind of prove themselves, and unfortunately they didn't. One of the queens was about 3.5 years old, so I was really skeptical about her getting through the winter, but her colony wasn't really huge, so I felt like it was okay to let her try, and she was actually doing really well up until a few weeks ago, and then her population just really started to go down, and she wasn't starting to lay. The other colony, I couldn't find the queen in my inspections in early January, and I don't know if something happened to her over the winter. She was, I think, about 1.5 to 2 years old, but her colony was really small, and because she wasn't there, at least I couldn't find her, she wasn't laying. So if she was there, she wasn't laying, and my other colony that was doing fantastic, she was laying like crazy. So I decided, my bold move was that I split them about a week ago. And my goal was to bring the queen out here to the mountains because I had 2 hives out here last summer, which were the most productive hives I have ever had in the last 5.5 years of beekeeping. And I ended up extracting in the fall, not in the fall. I extracted twice last summer, and then I also extracted again this past month because I had reserved a few supers of honey to feed back to them this winter because they had such huge colonies, and I figured they would need that extra support. And because they didn't make it, I had these supers of honey just sitting, and I was really scared they were going to attract pests and mice and things. So I just extracted them, and I'm keeping that for myself. I did save a few frames to feed back to this colony, but they really don't look like they need it. So I was successful in bringing the queen out here, just brought her out a few days ago, and I checked yesterday, and she is very happy in there. She's laying, so the travel was great for her. And I wanted to show you a few things that I am doing to set this hive up for success, because the biggest problem that I had out here last year, and which is why I lost the 2 colonies in the fall, was the small hive beetles. I have several videos about small hive beetles, so I'll link to those below. And one of the things that I did already in the fall when the hives had failed was I applied beneficial nematodes out here, and I'm going to purchase another strain and apply another strain next month. So just to kind of like get as many little friends out there to help fight them as possible. The other thing that I did, and I'll just go up to the hive in a moment and show you, is I just discovered, and it's really nice, the sun's just coming over the mountain right now, I discovered these small hive beetle entrance reducers, and they have kind of like a honeycomb pattern at the entrance, and it's like a red plastic, and allegedly the pattern on the plastic is a deterrent for small hive beetles. They don't like to walk across it, and it's very similar to how you see like cattle grates in driveways in farming areas where the cattle aren't going to want to walk on it. So I'm curious to see how this works out this season. I also purchased, and I just stained them, so when I get back to the house I'll show you, Freeman beetle traps, and I'll kind of demonstrate a little bit about how those work, and that I'm planning to put on in the summer, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. I also wanted to show you what's above me here is one of my swarm traps, and if you are kind of getting into beekeeping, I know folks that are watching are at all different levels of beekeeping. Swarm traps are great to put up in the early spring, kind of late winter, so right around this time. Swarms usually will start on like the first really nice day of the year. So we just had a day that hit 80 this week. So I didn't have this up for that day, but I had another one up, and so but bees really technically, I guess, like, I don't know why they prefer this, but they prefer finding hives on the tree line. So I picked the tree line. They also prefer hive locations that are 12 feet to 20 feet above the ground. So this little ridge area I thought would be a good spot. Some folks will put a little platform in the trees, and then they'll get a ladder and go up there and get it. Being that I do this all myself, and I'm not a tall person, and I wanted to have it kind of accessible to me. So I've had luck with having ground level, kind of like on an elevated area, swarm traps before, but this is the first time I'm using this location. So it's all set up there. One of my concerns is that with the wildlife around here, they could knock it over. So I might put a ratchet strap around it so that if it does get knocked over, it'll kind of keep it secure. Otherwise, it might just fall here and crash, and then I'll have to replace some equipment. But if you're curious about swarm traps, I can do a separate video on it. You just let me know. But I'm over at the hive right now, and I think it's probably a little, the sun's on it, but they aren't out yet, and it's fairly warm out. But they were very active yesterday, but it'll be a good opportunity for me to show you the entrance reducer for those small hive beetles. All right, I'm getting as close as I can because I don't want to touch this electric fence, and it is pretty strong. I think you can have a fairly good view. I'll kind of zoom in a bit, and you can see there is a bit of a pattern on that plastic, and we've got a little girl coming in here right now. And that is what I was describing as the surface that the small hive beetles don't like to go in. So I'm really hoping that that will work out. I have had a problem last summer with bald-faced hornets in this area, and I'm really curious if they'd be able to fit through that entrance. So that's one thing that I think this might actually be a help for also. It's definitely not going to help stop yellow jackets because those are smaller than the honeybees themselves. But that, oops, I just realized the camera had moved when I was trying to avoid the fence. With the entrance reducer here, the only other problem that I've had over here is that even with the electric fence coming so close to the ground here, and the reason why we did so many layers of tape here is because I know of another beekeeper near Asheville who lost her apiary even though she had an electric fence. Like, her tape was like here, I think her lowest one. And a mama bear and her cubs came, and the cubs went right underneath and demolished her hives. So I fortunately learned about her unfortunate situation just before I was setting up my apiary out here. And that's what prompted me to do the lower layers of tape. And with that lower layer of tape, it doesn't really stop possums and things, because we have this right next to the shed, and they just climb straight under the shed, crawl over, and remove the entrance reducers. So one of the things I was going to do this spring was to add like a chicken wire skirt on here, but it hasn't really proven to be too much of a problem at this point. But if a little critter gets over here and removes this entrance reducer, that will allow the small hive beetles to get in. So it wouldn't be like, out here for, a tremendous amount of time, but I would be able to fix it fairly quickly. But that would be the only other issue that I could see here. The Freeman small hive beetle trap, which I have in the house that I'll show you, would actually sit right here. It would replace the bottom board, and I could still use that entrance reducer. So it would just be an alternate bottom board for the hive. So I would have kind of like double protection of having the blocked entrance for the beetles and having a trap so that any beetles that do come in, I'd be able to get them. So I will take a walk back over and give you a closer look of what that beetle trap looks like. The Freeman beetle trap, and I don't have my tripod with me, so I will turn this around so you could have a closer look. When these arrived, I did a little video about them, so that kind of showed them when they first arrived, and I just stained them, and you may not be able to tell that I stained them because I use a mineral-based stain that kind of ages and gets a little bit darker and kind of patinas over time. But let me just turn this around since I don't have the tripod here. Just as we saw the hive before with the entrance on this side, this would be the new bottom board. And it has the ventilation in here. I did that intentionally so that this would be a good tool for summertime to help get the population of the beetles down before the fall. And then my intent would be to get the regular screened bottom board that I use back on, and then I use an IPM board to help prevent drafts and things. So the challenge with this that I could see is that in the summer, the colonies get so huge. So to put this on is going to be a little bit more effort because I will have to remove every single box to get this on the bottom. And then if I need to do a mite treatment, like which I use the oxalic acid vaporizer, I will need to remove every single box, replace this with the other bottom board so that I could seal up the hive. This doesn't allow me to seal the hive up. It would be open, so I wouldn't be able to do the vaporizer. So I'd have to be kind of strategic with how I want to time this. So I'm going to start thinking about when I would want to do a brood break, when I would want to do my oxalic acid vaporizer treatment, have that done, and then get this on. So I feel like it's going to be battling the varroa mites for the first part of the summer and then battling these small hive beetles. The way this works is that there's a tray here, and this you fill with a blend of vegetable oil and water, and that just hangs out down here. And the all the supers are sitting on here, and you sprinkle powdered sugar, confectionery sugar, onto the bees, and then you close up the hive. And the bees will go crazy cleaning off the other bees and moving the beetles around, and they will all fall down into this trap. I'm a little skeptical of this because this hardware cloth looks super teeny tiny, almost smaller than the small hive beetles. So I'm a little skeptical. These were expensive, I feel like. These were, I think, $65 or $75 each. I bought 2 of them. But it's something that I can do. So I'm curious to see how it works. I've saw some videos where some folks spoke very highly of them. And plus this feels like a good chemical-free way to battle the small hive beetles. That is it for the update on the bees. I have a few ideas in place for what I want to do to grow the apiary this spring. And my intent to grow the apiary is not for honey production. That's not why I keep bees, but it's mainly just to keep healthy colonies surviving. And what I'm thinking of doing is purchasing a VSH queen. So all of my queens up until this point have descended from VSH queens, which are varroa sensitive hygienic. So they have tendencies for aborting larvae that have varroa in them. And since I have only one queen left, I feel like she's got great genetics and lineage for having survived through the generations over the last almost 6 years. So I think it might be time to introduce some new genetics, and I'm going to some beekeeping stores soon and seeing what kind of stock they have for their queens. And I was thinking of taking some bees from this queen's other colony that I split her from and setting up a nuke with a new queen. So I'm not expecting much honey production this year, really, if at all, because she does have a small colony here and she's just getting started. And the colony that I split back home, they should have their new queen emerging later in the week, probably in the next week. She'll be coming out, and then she'll need to mate, and then hopefully she'll successfully mate and come back to the hive. And then that colony will need to build up its population, which is probably going to be happening just around the time of the nectar flow. So the timing could work out, or it might not. And of course, that queen may not emerge well, or maybe she'll get eaten by a bird on her flight back. We don't know. So that's kind of a gamble and a little bit of a reason why I wanted to set up a nuke. But I do have the swarm trap set up, so I think there's also this kind of this risk of, now I've got one hive, which is really nice to manage, potentially the other that will requeen itself. But you never know, a month from now I could have like 7 or 8 colonies because that's what happens in the spring, and it is an unpredictable time with swarms. But please let me know how your bees are doing this winter. If you're in North Carolina, if you're noticing similar losses in smaller colony sizes. I'm curious if there are any trends going on, and I will share more next time.